you what, man, I am glad to be back. What's going on, guys? It's Ronan. It's another episode of the Brass Knuckles Bible Club. So listen, hey, man, it's 2026. Listen, I wanted to thank all you guys for all of your prayers. 2025, I'll just be honest with you. 2025 was probably top three hardest years for me. It's just everything went wrong. You know what I mean? Couldn't win for losing in 2025. But, God had his hand on that. It wasn't without blessing. So listen, thank you for sticking with me. As you can see, I'm no longer in the cast anymore. If you've been a loyal fan of the show, then, I've been constantly keeping you guys updated, letting you guys know that I was going through a major surgery. And the last recording that I had, which I think was about the beginning or at least the middle of October was the last recording that I had done. Actually, I think it was the beginning of October was the last episode that I had recorded, and it was kind of like a part 2 to episode 20, which, if you haven't seen it, is fantastic, by the way. It's probably the best one that I've done so far. Okay. Again, that's 2025. We're in 2026 now. And so, listen, man, a lot has transpired from the last time that I had spoke to you. You would notice that, I've been transitioning through a couple of different angles right here, and that's not by accident. I'm very blessed. I'm able to have a second camera. Little things like that you wouldn't think about, really, per se. But I will tell you, it definitely comes in handy, and I'm not going to continue to speak on it. I was almost wondering about saying anything about it to begin with, but that's more so for the people that have been loyal to this show ever since I was just recording on my cell phone. Okay, it might not seem much, but there's actually a lot that went into it. This is a completely different streaming platform. I don't even know if it's a multimedia platform. This is a completely different multimedia platform than I was using before. There's actual lighting now. Like all podcasters, I gotta have a bookcase. But here's the funny thing, and I'm just gonna switch this just so that you can see behind me. So if you can see behind me, here's all my Bibles. And right here on the second row, this show has been known for, and I've kind of made it my mission to kind of expose the New Age and the occult, because I was saved out of the New Age and out of the occult. And I'm not just speaking from my rear end. I mean, I'm really about that life. You know what I'm saying? So when I say I know what I'm talking about, so like yoga, let's see, the Bhagavad Gita. Whenever I'm bringing up stuff like this, I actually know what I'm talking about. I come with receipts. I come with the original source material. So that's what I'm talking about. All this stuff, it isn't just for decoration. These are books that I've actually read. Whoops. I'm knocking all my stuff over. So anyway, and I'm not going to go through the trouble of turning my camera, but there's an entire wall of just books over there. But these are the ones specifically pertaining to the podcast. But anyway, like I was saying, that's what this show was originally about. But when you get down to the core, this show, it's all about evangelism. John 14:6, Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and life, and no man comes to the Father except through me," period. Full stop. So, and the reason I'm so passionate about that is because of Mark 16:15. I am commanded to go out into the world and proclaim the gospel to every living creature. And that's what it says. So if I'm not talking about Jesus, then what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? So, because all this stuff is temporal. Like my job is temporal. Everything that we have is temporal, and it's really easy to get sucked into this really temporal mindset. Um, with the holidays and gifts and none of that stuff is inherently bad. It's not bad, you know. But it can definitely take our focus off of what is important, and that's eternity. You know what I'm saying? Like everything in this life is just vapor in the wind in comparison to eternity. So anyway, but to kind of give you the flip side of that, you know, there's only so much that I can talk about. Like there's only so many exposés that I can do. Like I did an episode on yoga, I did an episode on astrology, I did another one on, pyramids and the link to Baal. I did another one on Islam. I did an episode on crystals. It's just all this different stuff. And listen, there is plenty of stuff there. There's tons of stuff there. But the problem is that stuff has an endpoint. And then eventually I'm just kind of talking in circles. And this isn't to be like every other podcaster that gets up here and, has a camera and all of a sudden they want to start talking like they know something. But here's the thing, I offer a different perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like I offer the perspective of a blue collar guy, and not just a blue collar guy, but somebody that is a combat veteran that has seen that the worst that the world has to offer. Okay. And I tell everybody, and it's not to beat my own chest, but when I was in the Marine Corps, like I wasn't peeling potatoes, right? I was an 0311 infantry rifleman. Mission of the Marine Corps Rifle Squad: locate, close with, and destroy the enemy with fire and maneuver, and repel the enemy assault by fire in close combat. It's been over 15 years. I still remember it like the back of my. I might stumble on my words a little bit more. I'm a little bit older, dumber, and definitely got punched in the face more since then. But you get the idea. I mean, like I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. The other thing with that is that I've walked the thin blue line. Okay. I don't just know how bad it can get overseas. I know how bad it can get here at home. But above and beyond all of that, okay, I have nothing to boast about. In fact, it's just like what Paul said. He said, I want to speak about nothing among you except for Christ and Christ crucified. So in that, if there was anything that I could possibly, okay, boast about, it's the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the righteousness that he has imputed to me because of that, a lowly sinner. So that it's not an accomplishment in that I did nothing to earn it. But I would say if it is the best, I hate to use the word qualifier, whenever you're listening to this stuff, you are listening to the perspective of not just somebody who's been there, done that, somebody who's seen the grit and the grime in the street and overseas. You're getting the perspective of somebody who is a bona fide, born again, baptized, Bible believing Christian. Period. I'm a family man. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. Like I bring these things to the table, and that might not seem like that great a qualification. I can't hang that in a nice little diploma on the wall, but I can tell you this, and you can tell this too, that if you've ever had a conversation with me and those that have actually guested on the show, when you find out that I'm a real person, it definitely kind of it kind of takes the mystique out of everything, which is a good thing. It's funny. One of the best compliments that I've ever given, that I've ever gotten, was a guy. He hit me up on not on Facebook. By the way, back on Facebook. Hey, did you hear me? Back on Facebook. Broke out of Facebook Gitmo. Okay. Um, so yeah. So anyway, just had to say that because listen, man, I was in Facebook for forever. Okay. Um, and I'm finally out. So anyway, back to what I was saying. Um, when when I brought all this up, it's just to say that look, there's going to be a point where I run out of things like that to talk about. False religion, essentially, it has its ends. It captures a lot of people, but it does have its ends. So one of the things that you know has really been heavy on my mind lately is Romans 1. Now, if you look at what's going on in the world today, it is evident that we are living in a Romans 1 world for sure. Um, that is a non-negotiable. Now, that's probably just where I'm going to have to leave that. I'm not trying to be too weird, not trying to be too gimmicky. I'm not trying to make it a thing. If it is a thing or it becomes a thing or it sticks, then that's fine. You know, call it the brass tacks, call it Romans 1 news, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Here's the thing. Um, at some point, we are going to have to go over current events. And there've been a lot of developments that have been happening since I last recorded. That's just a fact. That's just a fact. So we got to go over some of the stuff that has happened, right? So right at about the October timeframe, just before that was um, Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, I knew who he was. I didn't watch him like religiously. He had always struck me as a very, very intelligent man. But that was hard to watch. That was hard to watch. And the thing about it is that I'm pretty I'm pretty desensitized to seeing stuff like that. I mean, inevitably you're gonna get desensitized to seeing stuff like that. You're gonna see stuff like that. Um, especially if you were in combat arms during a time of war. That's just completely unavoidable. Whether you're in the Marine Corps, the Army, the SEALs, Rangers, whatever it is that you were doing, if you picked up a weapon and you were in a hostile area, hostile territory, and you were taking fire and returning fire, then you know exactly what happened to Charlie Kirk, what that looked like. You knew what that looked like. But the problem was is that it just seemed like something like that. It always just kind of seemed like over there. You know what I mean? Like just way over there. Like that stuff doesn't we don't do that here. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff doesn't happen here. And you really wouldn't think that that kind of stuff would happen in 2025. I know we're in 2026 now, but like in 2025, um, I it's just sad and it's scary because it's like I just wish that people would just calm down, relax. Okay. You know, um, as much as I said that, there's only so much that you can talk about false religion. I don't really know how accurate that is. I think I might be second guessing myself a little bit on what I just said right there because here's the thing, man. Politics really is kind of a religion in and of itself, really. Um, and I know I used to be that guy, dude. Like I couldn't talk about anything else. You know how some people are just like so over the top about football, and like they know every stat, they know every player, they know all the Hall of Famers, they know exactly how many yards this guy ran, exactly how many yards that guy threw, they know exactly how many, touchdowns this other guy got. I was that way with libertarian and conservative politics. I was that guy. But after looking at what happened looking at what happened with Charlie, looking at what happened with Trump, it was just one of those things where, like I said, you really kind of had that shocking splash of cold water in your face of this can happen right here, right here. Definitely left me in a funk for sure. And it just people didn't calm down from there. People just went crazier from there. And I do have to say that there are a few tells. There are a few tells that when you look at the assassination of Charlie Kirk, look at people's reactions. Look at their reactions. How people reacted to watching a man get publicly assassinated, just shot in the neck on TV, with blood and guts, with blood exploding everywhere in the middle of the TV. I mean, it was really graphic, dude. It was really, really gory, man. That really messed with me. You know what I'm saying? Like those cartel snuff videos, the ISIS videos, like anything with the neck. When people just start like bleeding out of their neck, but that's just god awful. God awful. And to see some people get up here and just like laugh. They laugh and joke and mock and it's just like, it's not to inflame or incite anyone when saying this, but like that action alone is just demonic. It's completely demonic. I mean, I don't know how you can make the case for something like that being okay. And obviously, if you've been anywhere near a TV screen, then you know what's happened within the past 2 weeks. The whole ICE shooting was awful. It was terrible. It was tragic. But never once was I jumping up and down and doing jumping jacks that this lady got smoked on TV. Dude, that's demented. It doesn't matter if she didn't vote the way I voted. Doesn't matter, dude. That's sick. It's sick. I don't understand that. And as Christians, we're really not going to understand that. We're really not going to understand that kind of stuff. But that wasn't the only thing that happened. So right after Charlie was, was the whole Brother Joshua debacle. Oh my goodness, man. That was a mess. Wasn't it? That was an absolute mess. Brother Joshua. Man, that guy, he thought he was special, didn't he? You ain't special. You ain't special. And dude, what? Look at what happened. See, this is the problem. This is the problem whenever people just like, they don't read their Bibles. And that sounds like such a pharisaical thing to say. No, like it's literally that simple. Like you do realize that. Like it's literally that simple. Deuteronomy 18. I've said this time and time again. Deuteronomy 18. If someone proclaims to speak on behalf of the Lord, if somebody says, "Thus saith the Lord," and whatever they say does not come to pass, then according to Deuteronomy 18 standards, that person is by definition a false prophet. And the funny thing about Brother Joshua is he's not only a false prophet, he's a false prophet times 2 and times 3. He made 2 more predictions, and guess what? Look at you now. Look at you now. None of that ended up happening. None of it. It's just, it's absolutely wild to me that, this other guy, I hate to keep naming names, but at the same time, like these people were pushing a dangerous message. They really were. There were people that were really adversely affected by this. And I know as soon as the next major headline goes along, everybody just kind of sweeps the past under the rug. No. I'm not letting you get away with that. Like this guy, Tillahoon Desalegn. Okay? I'm just going to go blow the shofar. Right? The Australian guy, the guy that sold his car and all this stuff, that he was like, he's like doing the rave thing with the flags. And, you know, I'm not knocking the dude's spirit. The guy definitely believed, and I'm not knocking that. But the guy obviously doesn't read his own Bible. He doesn't. He's a charismatic. He doesn't read it. I don't know why people aren't reading their Bibles, but they just don't. And see, that's the thing. You know, I don't expect everybody to read the Bible, but people that claim to be part of the body of Christ, I kind of expect to read it. Like if you're claiming to be a believer and a follower of Jesus Christ, which is like the definition of a Christian, well, then you take him at his word. You would read your Bible, and these people don't. Whatever. I don't get it. So then the brother Joshua thing happened. And then I had to go under the knife. And boy, oh boy, was that a mess. Now, I will say this. I've said it a couple times before. Look, as much as I would like to say, I didn't get this saving, a foreign dignitary while fighting off 10 ninjas. You ain't special. I'm not special. Okay. I got this because I lost a fight to a wet staircase. And I was running up the stairs.
Up is down. That's just maddeningly unhelpful.
Up is down, right? And that's kind of exactly what happened to me. Look, man, it happens. Now, good for me. It happened on the job, workers' comp. I had to play the whole workers' comp game. That sucked. Still playing it, but it was a hot call. It was dangerous. People were in trouble. It was an emergency. I had to hurry up. I had to get there. And whenever I found the place, it was nighttime. It was wet. It was raining. It had been raining all day. And this guy clearly had never, he'd never pressure washed his deck, ever. Because this was like wet algae boat ramp slick, okay? And dude, I gotta tell you, man, when I hit this thing, I turned into grease lightning. That's exactly what happened to me. I turned into grease lightning. And so I kind of felt like Peter Griffin. Whenever Peter just kind of like falls down the stairs, and his arm like ends up like behind him, and he's like, in that weird like position. Like that's how I felt. And it was a total dislocation. And it was pretty gnarly, man. It was a total dislocation and a fracture. And the hard part about this is that this is a shoulder that I've already jacked up and already had a previous surgery on before. So now I got me a I got me a nice little beauty scar right there. And the first time I got an operation, it wasn't very invasive, but like still, it was the arthroscopic one where they make like little slits or whatever. Looks like I got like branding on my shoulder. So they make like little slits and they put a little thing in there and then they pump it up like a bike tire and they go in, they, I don't know, they do their, doctor, blood magic, whatever it is that they do. And they go in, they fix you right up. The physical therapy for that sucked, but my physical therapist was on point. Brittany, I'll never forget her. She was fantastic. And my physical therapist, Craig, now, absolutely fantastic. The guy is just chef's kiss. Same thing with my surgeon. Dr. Burkhart was an OG, man. If you're ever injured and you ever have a shoulder injury, he is the shoulder guy here in Florida. Okay. That's Dr. Burkhart down in Orlando. He's not paying me for money for advertising. He was just that good of a doctor. And hey, man, listen, when you find yourself a good doctor, you keep him. You go back. You don't do this. Hey, I'm just going to try the waters with not with surgery, Bubba. not with surgery. So look, and then we got some other stuff that's coming up, man. You know, other stuff that I wanted to make like little shorter videos, but you guys have been patiently waiting so long that you know, we've really had some other issues. And sorry, man, I'm gonna have to put on some specs. That's another thing. Hey, listen, my specs, my birth control goggles, they're brand new. Yeah, new BCGs. Look at that. They're not all super glued and stuff. Listen, I'm working my way into getting, you know, LASIK, but I got to take it one thing at a time. You know, I'm not exactly rolling in the dough. So yeah, I mean, Venezuela. So Venezuela's funny because most people wouldn't understand the importance that Venezuela plays on the world stage. You know, they have the most oil other than Saudi Arabia. Okay. Most people know that. But what they didn't know is that the entire reason why China has not invaded Taiwan, which, by the way, if they did, that would be World War III. If China invaded Taiwan, which they won't, they wouldn't dare under Donald Trump, that would be World War III. The reason why they don't is because they don't have enough oil. Now, not Argentina, Venezuela is doing business with the Chinese and the Russians and the Iranians and essentially everybody who hates us. Okay. And so it's just one of those things where, like, look, dude, they're in our own backyard. I mean, dude, we have Russian submarines in international waters that are pretty close to us. They should be on the other side of the planet, but they're not. They're right here in our own backyard. That's another thing that most people don't know. Yes, we have a looming threat that is always nearby, that is always lurking nearby. And, you know, the other thing is that, you know, this is something that I've truly become intimate with, you know, and my secondary job, walking the thin blue line. You know, I've had an accidental fentanyl poisoning. Yeah, I mean, I've been backing up another deputy at a petty theft call, right? Whenever I'm going through some junkie's bag and I open it, and just kind of like how you're in like the theaters or whatever, and you kind of open your M&Ms too hard, and you know, your M&Ms go flying all over the place. Well, same thing happened to me. Only it was a big old bag of fent. And guess what? I fell out. And it's the weirdest thing, man. It's the weirdest thing. You know, EMS got there, they Narcan me, everything was good, they brought me back, and I don't know if it was the fentanyl. I don't know how to explain this in a way that really kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, because I've had fentanyl before, medical fentanyl. Okay. There was a point where I could feel myself dying. And the only thought that I had was, I'm glad I gave my life to Jesus. That's it. Legit. Too legit to quit. I can't tell you how many overdoses that I've been to. It's really nasty stuff. And yeah, it's everywhere. It's all over the state of Florida. It's all over Texas. It's all over the United States. People are dying in this stuff from droves. I've gone to overdose deaths, tons of them over the years. And these guys don't care. They just keep shipping it in. You know, Venezuela is a true narco state. And not only are they sending dope into the United States, they're also sending Tren de Aragua, okay? And other people that are very similar, or at least adjacent to, at least in the tenacity and just the violence, okay, akin to the cartel, like the kind that saw you in pieces and stuff you in a tortilla bin, okay, those kinds. They're like that. So whenever you get this guy, Maduro, who, by the way, has been he's been indicted since 2020. You realize that? Everybody's saying, oh, you can't just go capture him. You just can't do that. Listen, this guy's had a warrant since 2020. Okay? I know that I don't even want to just say liberals, but it's liberals. It's liberals who think that, hey, I can just break all these laws and nothing will happen. Nothing happens. Right? Wrong. Right? Eventually, you will get an arrest warrant. And this guy has been indicted. He's had a warrant since 2020. Since 2020. For narco-terrorism and drug smuggling. Okay? So it's not like this guy didn't know. And it's not like we just swooped in and scooped him up and stole his oil. So on top of that, the guy was talking all this crap. Okay? Come and get me. I'll be in Minneapolis. I'm not hard to find. Blah, 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 blah. Basically saying like Trump wouldn't do it. And the entire time, they were giving him opportunities. They were giving him opportunities to meet a settlement before it had to come to this. But he wanted to just sit there and he wanted to just keep egging it on, egging it on. It wouldn't be any different than, Lil Doodoo, the SoundCloud rapper, okay, that's got 10 felony warrants making rap videos, which, by the way, his warrants are for possession of a stolen firearm by a convicted felon. And here he is with stolen guns, pointing them at the camera, okay, in his rap video, and basically saying, hey, telling the police chief, come right here. I'm right here. You can't come and get me. I'm not hard to find. Come and get me. Right? And releasing these diss tracks and sending them to the police department. It's no different. Right? So guess what? I hate to be, I don't want to say FAFO and just keep repeating tired talking points. But it's one of those things where, you keep tempting this guy, and clearly he has shown he has no problem dropping bombs. And he's not going to sit here and egg you on.
Come on, Cletus. Come on.
Come on, Cletus. Come on. Right? He's not going to sit there and just nuck at you. He's going to do something. So, people are all up in arms whenever, Delta Force shows up. But he had a standing military and he vowed to not, he was going to resist. You think he's not going to use his army? So, who went? The cops, the DEA, escorted by Delta Force. Okay? So, just like when you have a warrant, SWAT shows up. That's the same thing that would happen to Lil Dookie. Lil Dookie, the SoundCloud rapper, wanting to take videos with all these stolen guns. Basically antagonizing the police chief that, hey, you're not going to come and get me. Sending you the address. Doing all the work for you. All you got to do is just draft up the search warrant. That's all you got to do. That was already done. That was already done. He's just egging people on. And whenever they show up, everyone's completely shocked and awed. They can't believe it. Oh my goodness. Donald Trump really did it?
Oh my God, guns!
Guns! Right? So they show up and they just schwack everybody and then they stuff them in a bag, throw them back on the ship, and then they tuck tail back to the United States. They scooped them up. It's the same thing that you would do with an arrest warrant. Hey, you're coming back to the station. Only the station's back here in prison in New York. That's how that works. Is anybody saying oh, you can't do that? Sorry. Okay. No, we weren't invading. We were just undocumented immigrants. We were undocumented immigrants. We were just immigrating. Undocumented. You see what I'm saying? So, but The funny thing about that is that, like, oh boy, does that kind of change things on the world stage? Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It's pretty crazy, man. It's pretty crazy. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that's pretty nuts. It is nuts. But it just goes to show, man, like, you don't know what the American military is capable of. We're capable of some pretty crazy stuff. And that brings me to my next point. The next thing that was right up around that we missed was the whole Kirk Cameron debacle. I really like Kirk Cameron. He's a very close partner to Ray Comfort and Living Waters, and it's just like I loved watching Ray Comfort. And any of the times that I've ever seen Kirk Cameron, he always struck me as a genuine believer. So you can imagine the shock of him, coming out and basically saying that he doesn't necessarily believe, or at least questioning the narrative of eternal conscious punishment whenever it comes to the doctrine of hell. It's pretty striking, considering that this was the guy that did all of the Left Behind movies, which is essentially and primarily a premillennial position, premillennial rapture, right? Now, I knew that he was postmillennial, or at least mid-trib. I knew that. Not a whole lot of people knew that about him. Listen, man, you get an acting job, and listen, I'm not saying that people's views can't change. They obviously can. But here's the issue. Okay, here's the problem. The problem is that this is something that it's very confusing, but it's also one of those things where people get really into their camp whenever it comes to this, especially about hell. You have to remember your view on hell and whether or not you think that it's, if you aren't sure about what I'm talking about, Kirk Cameron believes in annihilationism. Essentially, it's the idea that there is a certain point where your suffering ends, and then after that, you're just destroyed and you just cease to exist. I don't know how you could make the case for that with scripture. Just reading it, and I'm trying to be totally fair with the guy. Like, I'm not just poo-pooing on what he's saying. I don't believe that he is correct. But that's also one of those other things that, like, I don't know. Like, I've never been to hell. I don't know. Right? Like, I know what I've been taught, just like he knows what he's been taught, but I don't know, like, for sure. I have to take it on faith, right? But the other thing, too, is that, like, it's not a salvific issue. It's not. So for the people that are going out and, like, and attacking him and stuff, now, listen, it might be a discernment issue, like, for sure. Absolutely. It could absolutely be a discernment issue. And that's a problem.
Up is down. That's just maddeningly unhelpful.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure that I'm not, like, tripping over myself to listen to him. I kind of don't listen to people like that because it kind of sounds like you don't know what you're talking about. You ain't special. You ain't special. But he doesn't outright deny the doctrine of hell. Okay, that's an important distinction to make. And the problem is that we have too much division over just nonsensical stuff that we don't need any more division over things that we don't need division over. And this isn't one of those things that we need to divide over. It's not. Okay? The body of Christ, like, we have to stand strong. We have to. We have to. I don't know, man. Whether we're in the last days, I don't know. But one thing I do know is that you're in your last days. You just don't know when it is yet. You live until you're 93 years old. You can live until tomorrow. We don't know. Death happens. It happens all the time. And it doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care. Doesn't care how healthy you are, too. I've seen marathon runners fall over dead, and people that really don't take care of themselves just seemingly live and live and live and live and live and live and live. I still don't get it. I don't understand it, but I'm not God. So then there's the other issue. There's, oh boy. So we had that whole debacle up in Minnesota, didn't we? A lot of fraud going on. I don't know how they get away with that. I really don't. But I got to tell you, man, Tim Walz is definitely in some hot water for sure. And I really don't want to get too political. And the reason being is because, everybody's got an opinion, and even if people take, mine the wrong way, people will look for any reason that they can to try to get me fired. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. My line of work. It doesn't matter. They're going to look for any way that they can get them fired. I don't even know what voting does anymore, really. And I hate to be this just complete nihilist, but I really want to believe in like the American dream and the red, white, and blue and doing your best and all this other stuff. But I mean, if this Minnesota Somali fraud has taught us anything, is that nothing's real here. Nothing's real. And these politicians, none of it's real, especially, and they're showing that too with the way that they're reacting, because the same Tim Walz that's wanting to reactivate, he's wanting to activate the National Guard to fight ICE, when just 5 years ago, whenever people were begging him to activate the National Guard during the whole Summer of Love and the George Floyd riots, he said that they were incompetent 19-year-olds and that they were stupid. So, I mean, the guy he's a politician. He flip-flops depending on which way the wind blows. So, if you're looking for any kind of moral consistency, I mean, you're just not going to find it in a politician. You ain't special. You ain't special. And like I said, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if any of it's real. I mean, who's voting for these people? I'm not.
Sisumbaji votes for Sisumbaji.
Exactly. Sisumbaji votes for Sisumbaji. It's Pirates of the Caribbean, by the way, if you didn't know. But anyway, so I really hope that they get down to the bottom of that, because I guarantee you that that's not just in Minnesota. I guarantee you that stuff is everywhere. And as much as I get scam calls, I'm really kind of over it. So if we could get rid of those guys, it'd be nice. Oh boy. And here we go. Yeah. So the ICE shooting. Okay. Oh, right. I really got to watch what I say here. And I'm going to watch what I say here. So here's the thing. Okay. Multiple things can be true at the same time. This lady, Good, the news will try to tell you that she was just a mom taking her kids to school. She was not. She was a radicalized, trained. Okay. Her friends even said so herself. She was trained. She was a trained activist.
Another activist, McGuire.
Activist. Yes.
Yes, another activist. And it's sad, man, because as a combat veteran, I get it. Like I wholeheartedly agree with the First Amendment. I agree to the right to freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, the right to peacefully assemble, protesting, right? Peacefully protest. But here's the problem, okay? The centurion does not bear the sword in vain, okay? At the end of the day, these guys have a job to do, and they are going to complete their job. They are going to accomplish their mission. First of all, you don't have the right. You don't. You have the right to peacefully protest. You don't have the right to obstruct justice. And that's what you're doing whenever you try to block off their convoy. You're obstructing justice. You have the right to let your opinion be known. You have the right to the First Amendment. You have the right to tell them to screw themselves. You can do whatever you want. That's fine. But you cannot interfere. And the problem is that, they said, oh, well, she was an unarmed woman. Just here in Florida, there is aggravated battery by way of motor vehicle. Yes, as you could imagine, you can turn your vehicle into a deadly weapon. And I assume that that's the case in just about every other state, save California. And at the end of the day, they're going to do what they have to do to make sure that they, first of all, survive their encounter, number one, and number two, that they go home to their family. I'm not going to tell you whether or not I think it was justified or not. I'm not going to tell you my opinions on it. I am just going to say that this is evidence of hearts without God. Now, this is an indictment on our moral character, but I will say that these people are disobedient to parents, just like they're disobedient to authority. This is Romans 1. This is Romans 1. And it's a religion. It is 100% religion. The scariest part about dealing with people like that is they eventually get to a point to where they don't care what the facts are. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about evidence. Ultimately you would think that above everything else, I mean, the truth is what matters, right? The truth, because without the truth, then you don't have anything and your entire narrative falls apart. But to them, that doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter that they have the entire body camera. They're going to go with the worst angle. They're going to go with the worst sound bite. They're going to go with the worst everything. And that's expected. I've had the news do that to me too. The news does that. They're not honest, except for like independent journalism. Like I've never seen actual news agencies that had an honest bone in their body. I've never seen it. And I've been interviewed by news reporters a few times. And the way they twist the stories, the way they cut and they splice the video angle is so ridiculous. It's hilarious. Especially whenever you're watching yourself on the news, the way they edit it is absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's for the most shock value, the most clicks, the most likes, the most whatever that they can get to get it spreading. And unfortunately, they don't care if it radicalizes people because that just makes more better news. They don't care. They don't want to do news stories on people saving kittens out of trees. They want to do news stories on people setting fire to cop cars. And what better way to do that than to piss everybody off? They don't care. They do not care. That reminds me of this famous quote that, the first casualty in war is always the truth. And this is why whenever we get into these situations where it's left versus right, Republican versus Democrat, liberal versus conservative, Trump versus whoever, whatever, my ultimate allegiance is with Jesus Christ. Period. That doesn't mean, oh, well, if you're aligned with Jesus Christ, then you would back my candidate. No, that's not what I mean at all. And that's not what that means at all. It's so funny. Some people think they'd be like, oh, well, Jesus was a liberal. Jesus was that. Jesus, first of all, Jesus is a king. That's not part of democracy, so you know that. Okay? That's a monarchy of the tallest order. He's not just a king, he's a king of kings. Right? You just vote blue.
You ain't special.
You ain't special. You just vote red. You ain't special either. So, listen, above the elephant and above the donkey, I'm always going to be siding with the lamb, period. There's no two ways about it. It's really sad and it's really unfortunate, but that brings me to another thing. We got to calm down. Dude, it's January. We got to calm down. And, you know, there's people getting on the news saying that they're going to show up to more ICE protests and they're going to be armed. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we actually doing here? You can't do that. That's dangerous. That's extremely dangerous. And it's going to end bad. And you know what? You can't sit and, you know, but on the common sense side, like you can't try to hit people with vehicles. And you can't try to grab officers' non-lethal weapons and be surprised when you get pepper sprayed in the face, you know? Like, I don't know what happens. Hey, let's try to grab this cop's gun because you know what? They don't do anything when I just yell at them, so I'll just be able to do whatever I want. I can live however I want. I can give however many people I want the bird because I've been typing behind this computer screen for my entire life, and now I want to go out and feel like I'm a revolutionary. And the second it gets real, the second that it gets real, you know?
My God, guns!
Guns! Right? But that's exactly what happens. You can't. What are we doing? What do you think's gonna happen? Huh? Like what do you think is gonna happen? That's crazy. I don't know who in their right mind would think of something like that.
What is that, Private Pile?
What is that? Anyway, it's really sad. It's really unfortunate. I pray that everybody's safe. If you're going to protest, I pray that you do it peacefully. But most of all, I pray that law and order would be restored. Law and order and peace would be restored. You know, pray for the ICE agents' safety and all the state, federal, county, city, municipal law enforcement agencies. I pray for their safety as well. You know, pray for the National Guard and their safety as well. I mean, we saw up in D.C. Where those two National Guardsmen were shot. That stuff happens, and it's getting real. And people need to relax. Anyway, there's a lot more to come. You know, definitely as time goes by. Sorry for look, it took me the entire weekend, essentially. It took me the entire weekend getting everything set up for this. But you know what? It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I see that this is gonna take off. And you know what? We're definitely gonna be doing more episodes. A lot of this stuff is gonna be, I know I've just been kind of talking with you a little bit tonight. And you know what? Maybe that's how we're gonna be going. I don't know. Maybe a little bit more freeform. Anyway, as always, tell all you guys, you know, if you haven't already done so, go on Facebook and add me, Ronan Bledsoe. Okay, it's me, my face, got a thin blue line ghosted behind me. Go and add me on Facebook. That's official Bkbc podcast on TikTok and Instagram. Go and add me over there. Also, one other thing, you guys have probably, if you follow me, you've probably seen that I'm writing a book. I am indeed writing not just a book, I'm writing a trilogy. It is going to be absolutely fantastic. I'm still steadily working on that. When we're nearing the time for that to be released, I will be releasing more information on that. I'll tell you what, it's unlike any other story you've ever heard. Unlike any other story that you've ever heard, period. So, anyway, thanks for staying with me. Thanks for catching up with me. And we're definitely